one conversation I always have with growers is traits are not a silver bullet. And I learned this back in college, that if you do the same management year after year after year after year, pests will adapt, whether it's a tall water hemp plant or it's a corn rootworm. If you do the same management, the pests will adapt. So don't think that you can just, rely on just traits year after year after year and that the pests won't adapt. This is not a silver bullet. First year corn, I would go out into the field and do a root dig, like we've been doing with customers, and see if they have any corn rootworm feeding on their roots. And so fields that they should target to look at are fields that have not had traits in the last few years in rotation. So if 2 years ago that field was just above ground traits, no below ground, and this year it's just above ground, no below ground traits again, that would be the fields I'd go look at, because fields that have had traits in them, I'm not finding any issues. So go out into them fields, do a root dig, and see what you have for root feeding. If the roots look fine, like this VT4 Pro does, then likely you do not have any issues in that farm, and you would be safe to plant a double Pro in 2 years when that field goes back to corn. Or just if you're in the field and you see no beetles right now, because the beetles are in the fields, they've all hatched, they're mating, that's another indication that you most likely wouldn't have an issue happening, but you'd also want to dig some roots. You also can put sticky traps in these fields, and just yesterday I pulled some sticky traps from a corn soybean rotation field, and the threshold is 1 beetle per day per trap, and one trap was 0.21 and one trap was 0.33 beetles per trap per day, and so that was over the threshold of 1.0. So my recommendation to that grower was, when that field goes back to corn in 2 years, they're going to need to plant below ground traits. They're going to need to manage for that corn rootworm, or they're going to have the same issue once again. Corn rootworm beetles like to feed on silks, and so if you have a field in an area that's a later maturity or planted later and it silks later, all the rootworm beetles are going to probably migrate to that field from adjacent fields, because they're going to want to feed on those fresh silks, and then that's where they're going to lay their eggs. And so in a corn on corn scenario, next year when you go back to corn, if you're dealing with westerns, they're going to hatch. In 1 or 2 years, you could all of a sudden have a corn rootworm issue blow up. And in a corn soybean rotation scenario, they're going to migrate to that field, feed on them silks, and then lay their eggs. And then next year, those eggs are going to lay dormant in soybeans, and boom, you may have not had any issues before. You may not have any issues on any of your other farms, but all of a sudden, under this trap crop scenario, you got an issue on this farm because they were attracted to feed on those silks, lay eggs in that field. The eggs lay dormant next year in soybeans, and then they hatch in that first year corn.